What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Darkstalkers. We have number 3, Darkstalkers 3 here in America, which is the one I started out on. I noted that last video. I'm just commentating here. I'm not playing as I'm talking. We're just watching the video and talking about the Darkstalkers series, which has always been a favorite. But the only thing is, I say that, but I've only played like a couple of them, like 2 to 3. I think I played the first one in the arcade, and then, like I said, I started on 3 on PlayStation. Forgive the audio. I'm doing this from my controller mic. It was BB Hood, one of my favorites. Awesome character. I'm doing this from my controller mic. My headset is not charged at the moment. I've been having problems with it, especially on the console. I don't know why. But anyway, here we are. It's been a while since I've done some video commentary, but you can obviously see they expanded on the roster here in the 3rd installment. I stuck with Auto Turbo because of and high handicap I currently have, which is my arthritis, and still being rusty at the game. I'm playing through this, I mentioned in the previous video, is because of Marvel's Capcom games coming out later this year as of this recording. This one came out last year. I think it was actually out on PlayStation 3 as well, but this is the Capcom Fighting Collection, which only includes one Street Fighter title, and that was Gym Fighters, which is basically Tetris or Dr. Mario from a Street Fighter standpoint. But Vampire Savior Lord of World of Darkness, as known in was that the title? Darkstalkers 3, it is the 3rd game of the Darkstalkers series. Obviously, the story centers around a demonic nobleman, Jeddah, who I theorize, I don't know for sure, is the master that Morrigan talks about in her ending credits when you defeat the game. Obviously published by Capcom, put out by Virgin Interactive, haven't heard that in a while. Producer was Tetsuya Iijima. That name sounds familiar. Probably because of Street Fighter. It came out on Sega, Saturn, and PlayStation. Makes sense. Came out in 97 in Japan, 98 on Saturn, and then 98 on PlayStation. Get a lot of fighting games on you had some on Sega Saturn. Actually, I had the Street Fighter movie fighting game on Sega Saturn, but I never had a Sega Saturn, which sucked. But so the arcade version is known in North America as Vampire Savior, and in Japan as Vampire Savior Lord of Vampire. But on PlayStation it was released as Darkstalkers 3. Updated arcade versions with modified character rosters were released the same year in Japan, titled Vampire Hunter 2 and Vampire Savior 2. On console ports, also with unique character rosters were released for Sega Saturn and PlayStation. So, essentially we're playing through different parts. I didn't realize that. I thought this was like Darkstalkers 3, 4, 5, and 6, but that's still cool. I'll still do these recordings because Morrigan's a favorite character. I love her character. I touched on that in the last video. I won't go too in depth here, but she's one of the more popular characters that made it through on different titles. Marvel vs. Capcom. I don't think she was on X-Men vs. Street Fighter. She wasn't. I think she was in Capcom vs. SNK. I can't remember totally. But I'll tell you what kind of disappointed me, because in the opening credits of this game, you see Akuma as well as Dirty Barrett on the left behind a Capcom, and I was like, they did not put Akuma in this. But Akuma actually kind of would fit in a weird way. But anyway, Jeddah Doma, one of the high nobles of Makai, is resurrected after a premature death long ago. Seeing the current chaotic state of the demon world, which is the world that Darkstalkers takes place in, he decides that the only way to save Makai is to recreate it. To this end, he conjures a pocket dimension known as Magijin, to which he summons worthy souls to help feed his new world. As luck would have it, those souls belong to the returning Darkstalkers from the first 2 games. in addition to 3 newcomers, which is BB Hood, QB, and yeah, I forget the other. BB Hood is kind of a favorite. She's, again, just Red Riding Hood, but with a gat and a knife. She's kind of one of my favorite moves is where she cuts him with a knife. She's like Babayon. I think that's right. I could be mispronouncing that, but that's another thing I touched on the previous video. Darkstalkers, violent, gritty, and graphic. Sexualized too, obviously. But that's one of the things that drew me to it. To name a few things. It's Street Fighter, but with a darker take, obviously. There was different books, comic books, The Dark Lord, Where Souls Return to, 2-part novel written by Akihiko Yoshino, published by Gamist. Wow, they have more books and comics than I realized. Vampire Savior, Lord of the Vampire, Capcom game soundtrack, and another soundtrack. An English language strategy guide was published by GameFan, with a guide using the unused Darkstalkers Jetta's Damnation title. Huh. It was well received in the US. Obviously, I would say it's probably one of the more popular titles when it comes to Darkstalkers. In Japan, Game Machine listed Darkstalkers 3 on June 15th, 1997 as the second most successful arcade game of the month. Interesting. Vampire Saber is one of the same 2D fighting formula Capcom's been churning out for years. Despite this fact, however, the latest Darkstalkers entry holds it beautifully. They gave it a 4.5 out of 5 for fun factor and control, perfect 5 for sound and graphics. Agreed. Both Next Generation and GamePro praised the game's smooth animation and striking special moves. Obviously. Victor here, who was later or earlier known as Frankenstein, I think it was, but probably due to copyright they had to change that. There's a bit of a jump here in the video. I was trying to see if there was a way to modify the lives. I later came to find out when you're in the game selection menu here on the collections screen at the very beginning of the game when it loads up, there's a settings menu, and the lives are set to 4. One of the cooler victory animations of Morrigan, I think. It's got like a club suit going on there. Very sexy. Also, obviously updated in between screens, updated sayings. I kind of like that art, but it's not a favorite. Talbane got updated. Obviously, all the art here got updated. The backgrounds are updated as well. A lot better detail, I think. I lost my wording. I just ate, so I'm kind of going into a food coma. Talbane's really cool. Yeah, that's basically like. Oh, last video I was looking for. I was under the impression, and I was totally wrong. I used to have a VHS of Darkstalkers. Come to find out, it was only like one of the OVAs, which are 40 minutes long. There was 4 of them, right? So during the video, I'm looking at Amazon. I'm just like, oh, cool. I wonder if they have it on Blu-ray. And I was thinking that there was like a 10 to 12 episode anime season, but it was only the OVAs published, which is where I learned a good chunk of the story and lore behind Darkstalkers. I never really had any of the comics or the manga. I picked up that Darkstalkers video, I think at GameStop one time. It was marked down back in the day, probably late 90s, early 2000s. Picked that up and then watched it, and that's when I got hooked on the intro. I uploaded the intro on the channel here years ago, and it's actually one of the more popular videos here on the channel. It's really cool if you get a chance to check it out. But I did find the OVA collection on Amazon on Blu-ray. Went ahead and ordered it, and then I'm also going to get a hardcover What was it? It was a hardcover. Give more information in case anybody's interested. Hardcover. Hard. Where did it go? Darkstalkers. Yeah, Official Complete Works, and then there was a Darkstalkers Rise of the Night Warriors hardcover, which is, I think, either the manga or the comic series. Both complete Darkstalkers and Darkstalkers the Night Warriors comic series. Oversized collection also includes every Darkstalkers bonus story and variant cover. So I'm going to add that to my list. I'm going to get the Blu-ray before this. My Amazon list, and get that later. Okay, so I got that. It's marked down from $49.99, which is not horrible. 113 reviews at 4.9, 3.9 on Goodreads. I mean, this is a really cool stage. This is the first time I've seen this throughout my playthroughs here in the videos. That dude chilling, the skeleton chilling in the cabin there. Or I forget what that's called. Control. This is also where I first kind of learned to taunt on the collection key mapping. It's just the menu button. That's it. Sorry if that was whistling. This camera's kind of funky, or mic is kind of funky. But anyway, no, the skeleton's just there chilling, smoking, doing whatever. It's a pretty wicked train, too. I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, but the mouth at the front, that right there, I think that was added later. This may have just been a basic, like, death train. All rusted out, old, creepy. But then they were just like, no, it's not enough. Add something extra. Put a giant mouth that's blowing a kissy face. And a giant eyeball on front. I didn't even notice the eyeball. Maybe the eyeball is already there. Then again, maybe this train is alive. It probably is alive, actually. Not just a standard death train. That makes sense. Although the eyeball's not moving. Huh. Didn't even notice that. What do you know? I'm kind of limited on that information here. But 3 was always my favorite. I remember having it back on PlayStation. I don't know what I did with it. I've kept a few games over the years. Darkstalkers 3 I may have traded in. So it's a stupid move on my part. I'm not sure what it's worth. I'll look it up here in a minute. But Darkstalkers, it should have been one that I kept over the years. Parasite Eve has been one. Final Fantasy VII. I did have Silent Hill for a while, but I don't remember what I did with that. And another one was Ehrgeiz, or Ehrgeiz, I think it's German. Ehrgeiz. Anyway, God Bless the Ring. That was given to me by a friend of mine that passed away. I mentioned him in the previous video because I was talking about how I used to be a major Capcom and Squaresoft fanboy, and he kind of woke up my reality and said, there's a giant tongue. There's another one at Rail Pits. I totally forgot about that one. That's more of a club scene. I guess they're all kind of a club scene. But he was just like, dude, not everything this company makes are gold. I mean, some of them are shit. You know, and I was like, well, that's true. So, kind of grew up on that. Now, here's Jeddah. That's the birth of a new god. I guess this is what he was creating, and definitely one of the darker backgrounds I've ever seen. Back in the day. Which, again, is Darkstalkers. I mean, pretty sure the game was rated mature. I don't think it would be rated teen. Well, then again, back then, teen was fairly loose rating. And there's Jeddah's taunt. Jeddah's a cool character. I mean, he wasn't one of my favorites, but him and Felicia are definitely cool characters. Dimitri's a cool character. I talked about him last video, where he's got this move where he turns everybody into female characters and sucks out their life essence. It's really funny. And again, it's just testament to the amount of love and detail they put into these games, and the characters and their moves and how fluid everything is. And again, I touched on this, is why Morrigan is one of my favorite characters. She's kind of stiff, but her moves are awesome. All the characters have awesome moves, but she's got Darkstalkers 3 especially has, I think each character has like 3 or 4 what I call ultimate moves, which is where the special gauge builds up and you can unleash more massive attacks. This was also one of the first games, to my knowledge, to introduce one of the variant life bars, which is different levels. They call it lives in the settings, like I mentioned earlier, but in later games, I think by Capcom, you see multi-bars of life. First level, second level, so on and so forth. That's a cool move. It's like that reminds me of Demi from Final Fantasy. It's really cool. Here in a little bit, they introduce the character Lilith. And it's an appropriate name. But come to find out, Lilith wants Morrigan's body. And I can't tell if it's like... it's like the characters in Supernatural. If you ever watched the Supernatural series, there's an angel and a demon. They both have perfect vessels in humans, which is Sam and Dean. Satan and Michael, I believe. And if the vessel and the entity combine, the devil or the angel combine, they're one of the most powerful beings ever made. And there's... He tried to chain me to the darkness again. Jetta. I really wanted to see you. Yes, you. You and me belong together. You have my body. So... I'm guessing maybe these two were split at some point. And you'll even notice there's a big difference. Like these two are kind of contrary. Where I think I talked about it earlier, where Lilith is more like happy, hopeful. There's like an innocence to her, but she's also still a succubus. While on the other hand, Morrigan's more lustful. I would say more adult, also more violent, but same moves basically, except different themes. Where she's got hearts and like a kiss, Morgan's got like bats with what I can only describe as dark flames around it. But in the end, they both, the ending, I'll tell you, the ending, talk about sexualized. Again, it's just my dirty mind at work. Growing up how I did. I had some dirty uncles, dirty jokes left and right. My grandfather's father. Games didn't help. Media didn't help. The internet didn't help. But, you know, if you weren't familiar with some of the concepts of this game, but obviously looking at it, the animation styles, the moves, the characters, especially that, moves like that, the game is obviously sexualized because sex sells, especially back in the 90s, especially to teen boys. But you take that marketing concept, quote unquote, and add it with an awesome fighting game from one of the iconic companies that really, I would argue, invented the genre for the most part, or breathed life into it. When it comes to fighters, I mean, you just, you know, you got something that's very appealing, very awesome, obviously back in the day. But you might have noticed throughout these videos, there's a lot of default wins, like timeouts. And due to the high handicap I set to the health bar, but because of my arthritis, and just being who I am, but I also wanted to make my way, just being rusty, I mean. But I also wanted to make my way to the ending and get these up on the channel, because it's sharing one of my favorite series, while I'm also, poor Lilith, but we get the ending here in a bit once we fight. Wait, is that it? Yep, that is it. And I didn't get to enter Psy here because I was watching the animation. I only want to have a body to live in. You want this body? Don't you? You need me. I guess the Lilith can't survive without her. Now, again, Capcom knows what they're doing. All right, then, come inside me now. Look, man. I get it, Capcom, but that's... Yeah. This ending animation is cool. She's obviously flying over the city. Everything looks and feels different now. Now, she's essentially a different character. I don't really see a difference in the character later, like in the Marvel vs. Capcom games or whatnot. So any entries into those games, I'm guessing, is just Morrigan. But anyway, stay safe, stay sane. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you later. Peace.